But now I give you Frank D. Varona.
Thank you so much, Jared, and thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for coming. I passed you two pamphlets, so I'll start with that. I am the South Florida director of a patriot organization which is called Bear Witness Central, and we have two websites, one in English, which you can access by putting bwcentral.org. It's right here. And we also have one in Spanish called www.libertad, liberty in English, USA.com. Because we need to address, we need to take our message to the Hispanic community that most of the Hispanic community are brainwashed when they watch Telemundo and Univision, because those are progressive stations, pro-Obama, just like the New York Times and most of the US papers, with the exception of Wall Street Journal and Fox News, and radio, conservative radio, and so forth. And so we are trying to do that, and we work with a multitude of organizations, Tea Parties, I'm a member of the executive committee of the Miami-Dade Republican Party. But we work with Tea Parties across the nation, not just in Florida. And I've been speaking all over Florida in different cities. Republican Party invites me, Tea Party invites me. I'm going to be at the Villages Tea Party next month. I'm going to be at the Greater Orlando Tea Party later. We're bringing Trevor Loudon to Miami. We're going to have a meeting there with him. So we're all the time trying to get our message out. I speak on the radio on a weekly basis. Television, I've been on national TV, on C-SPAN. I attended a conference in North Carolina at Myrtle Beach, which I think is a huge conference. This January, I think Ted Cruz was there. 3 or 4 or 5 US representatives, retired military, 4-star generals, and so forth. And I spoke there a year ago, in January, exactly a year ago. And what I said there, I only had 10 minutes, as opposed to now I have an hour. But there were 60 speakers over a 3-day conference, 3 days. And I said briefly that in 2008, the United States elected the first Marxist president in our 230-year history. And moreover, he's a radical, hidden Muslim as well. And then I went on, I spoke about his brother. This is Barack Obama's brother, dressed with a Hamas costume. He has a scarf. On this side it says from the river to the sea, which is what Hamas says. In fact, they chanted in Miami during the Israeli Gaza war, from the river to the sea, Hamas, Hamas. And no Israel, it's just all Palestine. And on the other side, it says, Jerusalem is ours, in Arabic. And Barack Obama's brother works with the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist nation of Sudan, which have assassinated 400,000 Christians. And the dictator of Sudan, and you see his picture, I'm going to circulate this so you can see the pictures. Just give it back, please. You see him here speaking in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, and the dictator is right here sitting down listening to his speech. And he's using the bank that was founded by Osama bin Laden at a cost of $50 million. You remember Osama bin Laden lived in Khartoum for a while. And he's using that bank to raise money for Hamas. That's the president's brother. He also worked with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and he was denounced by the Vice President of the Supreme Court of Egypt in Cairo TV as the architect of the finances of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. And there you see him with the leader of Hamas there, the head of Hamas. And so I'm going to pass, this is article, by the way, it's in Spanish, but you're not looking at the article, you're just looking at the pictures. And here's he speaking in Khartoum. He's the Secretary General of an organization called DAWA, D-A''WA, which is a terrorist organization. So that's the president's brother. And by the way, Barack Obama is just like his brother. There is no difference at all. He's been supporting Hamas all along because he gives a lot of money to the United Nations. Most of the money that the United States has comes from the United States, and the United Nations employs in Gaza all the Hamas officials. So indirectly, we're giving him money. And when the Palestinian Authority, but Mahmoud Abbas, whatever his name is, did a unity government with Hamas, and we were giving the Palestinian Authority $480 million a year, lots of people in Congress says you got to stop the aid that you're giving the Palestinian Authority because they have a unity government with Hamas, which is a terrorist organization in our list of the State Department as well as in Europe. And the president did not stop the aid. So he's giving money to Hamas. He did an executive order saying that if he, as President of the United States, deemed necessary to support a terrorist organization, that was okay. Because he knew about the national interest, and if he had to help the terrorist organization, that was okay. On that day, on that very day, he did that executive order. Glenn Beck said, today, I'm asking for the impeachment of Barack Obama. I've never asked that, but that executive order means he's a traitor to the nation, and I am asking for his impeachment because of that executive order, because he's not above the law. He cannot violate the Patriot Act and every other law in the United States by supporting openly a terrorist organization. Anyway, so I said that in 10 minutes, and a few other things like that, and as a result of that, when I went home, I got a threatening letter from an Islamic radical from Europe, which I erased. I didn't pay attention to the letter, but then other people that got that letter said, you can't erase it. You got to report it to the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Miami-Dade Police Department. So I did that too. So anyway, this is the world we live in. We have a president who is an absolute traitor. Have you heard of this report? Called How America Switched Sides in the War of Terror. Are you aware of this report? No one has seen it, okay. A gentleman by the name of Roger Aronoff, and you can access his website, and it's fantastic, his website, he has articles every day. It's called Accuracy in Media. So you can access it by going into the internet and put Accuracy in Media, right? AIM.org. And you can see this report there, plus an article that I wrote there too, because he published one of my articles about this report. Anyway, this Roger Aronoff writes in this Accuracy in the Media, things are not printed in the pro-Obama press. And then he set up a committee made up of 18 people, people like retired Admiral, 4-star Admiral James Lyon, who was head of the Pacific Fleet, and also second in command of the U.S. Navy, General McInerney, 3-star General, Air Force General, retired, who you may have seen him in Fox News. He's a contributor to Fox News. They interview him frequently there. Navy SEALs, 2-star admirals, 1-star generals, 3 or 4 former CIA agents, including Claire Lopez, who writes all the time books and everything against Obama. Alan West was there in the committee, as well as another retired congressman, 18 top-notch people, and they study what happened in Libya. And I'll mention it quickly because it's very important. I have a whole chapter in the book where I talk about the 8 scandals of Barack Obama, and this is one of the scandals. Of course, this report came after my book was written. Nevertheless, I have a whole section on Benghazi, which practically says what it says over here in this report. But anyway, this is a very important report because this is impeachment. We have a traitor that lives in the White House who has committed high treason, not just in Libya, but everything else. IRS, Fast and Furious. I mean, this is the most criminal president in the entire history of the United States. He has committed more crimes than all of the presidents put together. Also, he has spent more money than all of the presidents put together, right? When he came to power, we owe $10 trillion. Now we owe more than 18 plus. So in 6 years, he's put us in the hole by $8 trillion. And all 40-some presidents before him, they spent 10 trillion. And this man in 6 years has spent $8 trillion. But I wish that was the only debt that we have. That's just the federal debt. How about the unfunded mandates? None of them are fully funded. All of them are unsustainable. Short-term unsustainable, economically. Obamacare, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, you name it, they're all, he hasn't reformed any of these programs in 6 years of being there, and very soon we're running out of money on all of them. So when you add the unfunded mandate, when you add the debt of the 50 states, the cities, the counties, our real debt is estimated to be in excess of $150 trillion. So we are as indebted as the Europeans, just as bad as they are. And they are really bad. You remember how Mitt Romney said in 2012, we don't want to be another Greece? We are already another Greece. Thanks to the irresponsible Marxist, hidden Muslim president that we have in the White House. But anyway, let me go back to this report because it's quite important. In February of 2011, there was a civil war in Libya to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi. Who wanted to overthrow him? The Libyan Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda. The whole eastern part of Libya, where Benghazi is and all those cities to the eastern part, that is all Al-Qaeda. They fought against our troops in Iraq and our troops in Afghanistan. And they wanted to overthrow Gaddafi in 2011, in February 2011, because Gaddafi by that time had become an ally of the United States in the war of terror. Now, Gaddafi was a very evil dictator. You remember how he blew up a Pan-American plane over Scotland, killing 300 people, including lots of young students from the New York University and so forth. He was assassinating our soldiers in Germany, putting bombs in the places where they went to socialize, after work and so forth. And then Ronald Reagan sent his planes to assassinate Gaddafi. He bombed his palace, almost killed him, and killed some of his children. So immediately after that, he ceased being bad. And that's a lesson for any US president. We don't have to go to wars anymore. What we need to do is kill the people that head the countries that go to war against us. We have the technology. If we have a nation that's attacking us and we know what the leaders are, we kill the leaders. And it's over. And that's what President Reagan tried to do. And right after that bombing, Gaddafi stopped being an enemy of the United States. And with George W. Bush, he gave up all the uranium that he was trying to refine and so forth, and then share intelligence with us. And he was an ally. So that is precisely why Barack Obama wanted to overthrow him, to support Al-Qaeda and to support the Libyan Muslim Brotherhood. That is treason. And Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, was part of that. So both of them should be in jail by now, both of them. Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, for what she did. Anyway, so the war begins in February of 2011. Hillary Clinton, well, first of all, they would go to the UN and get permission for our Air Force to become the Al-Qaeda Air Force. And then we began bombing Gaddafi. Then Hillary Clinton goes to London the next month, March of 2011. She meets with a transitional government there, which is the Libyan Muslim Brotherhood that she meets with. And then Barack Obama sends Chris Stevens, who had served earlier in the embassy in Tripoli before, so he's very fluent in Arabic and so forth, and he becomes, for the very first time, an envoy to Al-Qaeda. How beautiful. And then he goes to Benghazi, and there, our Navy lets 1 billion. All of this is in the report. I want you to read it because I'm giving you just a short version of it. You can read the whole report in great detail. Names and everything, dates, everything here in this report. So Hillary Clinton goes to London, meets with them. He sends Chris Stevens to Benghazi not as ambassador, but as a special envoy. And then $1 billion worth of armaments comes. They purchase the guns in Eastern Europe. Qatar, which is a terrorist country, I can talk about Qatar, I've written articles on Qatar, at least 2 or 3 on Qatar. So Qatar brings those weapons through Benghazi, And our envoy, Chris Stevens, distributed the $1 billion worth of weapons to Ansar al-Sharia, to Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, to all the Al-Qaeda terrorists, and also the Muslim Brotherhood of Libya. And they are not disguising who they are. They have the black flags of Al-Qaeda, and we are distributing all those weapons to the Al-Qaeda terror organizations in Libya. Now, when Gaddafi sees that the United States got NATO involved, and that he has now the Libyan Muslim Brotherhood, and he has all these terrorist Al-Qaeda linked terror groups, militias and so forth against him, he realizes that he's dead. So he asked one of his generals to contact Carter Ham, who is in Stuttgart, Germany. He's the head of the African Command, 4-star general, and says, listen, I want to get out of here. You don't have to fight me. I want out. I want to take my family out, my generals out, and you can take over Libya. Because he knows he can win. And so Carter Ham is very happy. Nobody has to die, right? This is at the beginning of our involvement. This is in March of 2011, and months after the Civil War started. And then Carter Ham notifies Washington. Washington tells him, cease negotiation. So the war was completely unnecessary. The war was against the national interest of the United States as well. So Gaddafi gets overthrown. He's mutilated. Before they kill him, they violated him with a stick. That's the worst thing you can do. That's the same fate that Chris Stevens had also. And then Chris Stevens becomes our ambassador to Libya. And then he gets an order from Obama to pick up all those weapons. There are even 20,000 man-packs, is that what it's called? That you shoot planes. 20,000 of those are in Libya, and a lot of armaments there. Floating, imagine the billion that came in plus what Gaddafi had before. So Libya is overflow with weapons. So then we put a CIA annex here in Benghazi. A mile away, we put something that we call the consulate. There's no consulate there. That was just a special compound, which Hillary Clinton put there to cover what the CIA was doing. They're a mile apart. Here we have 40, 50 CIA agents. They are buying guns from the Al-Qaeda, and then they're shipping those weapons from Benghazi to southern Turkey, who has a prime minister, friend of Obama, who is an Islamist radical. His name is Recep Erdogan, who also attacked Israel. Remember that? A few years ago, he sent some ships from Turkey to violate the blockade and broke relations with Israel and so forth. Anyway, he's a traitor also, just like Obama. That's why they're friends. So he received all those weapons and sends them. There's about 800 miles boundary between Turkey and Syria, and all of those weapons go where? To the Islamic State. ISIS or ISIL, whatever you want to say, Islamic State, the Caliphate. They get the weapons. So who is responsible for arming the Islamic State? Barack Obama. Who is responsible for all those thousands of Christians that have assassinated? His name is Barack Obama, the traitor that lives in the White House. That's who did that. And the other person that got the weapons is an organization called Al-Golani. It's a terrorist that is connected to Al-Qaeda. And it's called the Al-Nusra Front, A-L-N-U-S-R-A, the Al-Nusra Front. I have his picture in my book, and although that terrorist, I have a whole chapter on Syria there in the book. So that's what happened. There was a free Syrian army. Those are supposed to be the good Muslims, the secular Muslims. Well, maybe they got 5% of the weapons. 95 was the other things. So that's the scandal that's covered here with great detail by reputable people, patriotic Americans, military. There's one guy that was deputy defense secretary here, said CIA, everybody retired, of course, but these are people that have contacts in the Pentagon. Now, what happened also at Benghazi? Why did they assassinate our ambassador, who actually was their friend? Well, you're dealing with crazy people. Maybe they didn't pay him enough for the guns. Maybe they got angry for something. I mean, when you're dealing with crazies, they may be your friend today, and tomorrow they will kill you. Because you're dealing with terrorists, fanatic terrorists. And also, the admiral, the 4-star admiral, James Lyon, he had a theory that they probably wanted to kidnap our ambassador to trade him for the blind sheik, who is a very high official of the International Muslim Brotherhood. And you remember he planted the bombs at the Twin Towers before they got blown off completely, killed a bunch of people. He wanted to blow the Lincoln Tunnel in New York, bridges in New York and so forth. And he got sentenced for I don't know how many life sentences they gave him and his followers. So it's a major objective of the Muslim Brotherhood to free the blind sheik, and knowing Obama. He likes to trade the worst Taliban for a deserter, right, who should be shot for abandoning his post during war. According to the U.S. Code of Conduct, or anybody in the military here, armed forces, raise your hand. Well, you know what it says. If you're in a war and you desert your post, that's death penalty. That is the death penalty for this traitor that we traded the 5 worst Taliban. So anyway, so this is probably the worst thing that Obama has done among the many scandals that he has been engaged in. And if you haven't seen the horrendous pictures of what they do, the Islamic Caliphate is doing, have you seen these horrible pictures? Perhaps you don't want to see them, you know? I mean, it's horrible, you know, cutting heads, lots of heads, shooting people, crucifying Christians. Goodness sake, this is not Roman times. Crucifixation, okay? Any Christians that was found by this capture, like Mosul, in fact, all of Syria, the apostles, those are converted Egyptians, converted Syria, Iran, Iraq, all of that was converted to Christianity. In fact, before the Gulf War, 20% of the Middle East was Christian. They're down now to 3% from the Gulf War to now. 1 million Christians have been assassinated in the last decade. 1 million. So whatever, I mean, they try to get out. They're trying to get out, obviously. But and this, no matter what I can say about this caliphate, these pictures tell it all. I mean, if you didn't eat a lot today, you have a strong stomach, you're welcome to see the pictures. There's nothing I can say. Prisoners that they capture, they shoot them. They crucify the Christians, like in times of the Roman Empire. They violate, rape the Christian women, and then they sell them as slaves in Syria to the members of the caliphate, and the kids also kill them too, the children also. So anyway, and who's responsible for that? Our president, who armed that caliphate. And besides that, what did he do in Iraq? Against every general in the Pentagon. You have to leave troops. I mean, we spend all these people, 4,000 Americans died. Thousands of wounded died. How can we pull out completely and not leave one soldier behind? And that's exactly what he did. We should have left at least 10,000 soldiers there. So at least they could continue to train the incompetent Iraqi army, at least train them, and more than that, to gather intelligence for us. So he pulled out every troop against the advice of every single general in the Pentagon. Besides, he's cutting the Pentagon to pieces, as you probably know. He's cutting 10% of the Pentagon for the next 10 years. At the same time that Russia and China are arming to the teeth, and we're cutting drastically our military, and he also purged 40 generals. And you've seen the list, right? That's circulating the internet. Why did they purge him? Because they were opposed to Barack Obama's policies. That's exactly why. Well, anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about the book now. I have already gone half an hour. I hardly have even started. It always happens to me. Okay, but this was very important. That's why I had to say these two things. Anyway, this is my 4th book on the Obama administration. The first one, look at small. It was called Obama or McCain. It came out before the 2008 election. The second one, The True Obama, His Marxist, Socialist, and Radical Connections. The third one, Obama or Romney, before the 2012 election. It came out in September 11, 2012. And the latest one came out in January of 2014, a year ago it came out. So this book has 480 pages. It has 85 pictures, and it has 4 maps. And everything I write there, I'm a historian, is fully documented. The New York Times said this, the London Daily Mail said that, the Guardian. The best papers to read to find out what's happening in the United States are the London papers. They tell the truth about the United States, unlike our papers here that are completely censored. Even the Wall Street Journal don't say everything about it either. But so I just want to briefly tell you about the book. The book is like 3 books in one. That's why it's so big. But in all of the books that I write, because they are so lengthy, I have it's like an executive summary of a report, a lengthy report. It's about 50 pages. So if you read the 50 pages, you get the gist of the book. And also in the preface, I also put something that happened just maybe a week before the book came out that I didn't have time to write about, so I stick it there as well. So it's a very comprehensive preface, in terms of the book. And then, so the next chapter after that is, of course, who is Barack Obama? Of course, I have all sorts of pictures, Barack Obama. He's the dad, when actually the dad only abandoned the mother, and then when he was 10, he came back for a week to see him, so he hardly knows the dad. And yet he writes, dreams from my father he never knew. But even before he became president, there were a lot of scandals involved with him. And I mentioned that in here, in his biography. For example, his best friend was Tony Resco, who was born in Aleppo, Syria. This is the political godfather of Barack Obama, who gave him $250,000 in all his campaigns for the state senate of Illinois. And then this house, almost in front of Tony Resco's house, came for sale. And he told Obama, why don't you buy that house? But he didn't have the money. It was a very expensive house. It was actually worth $1.65 million. And he used to live in a condo at the time with Michelle and the 2 girls. So he didn't have that kind of money. So Tony Resco said, don't worry, I'll help you buy that house. So Rita Resco purchased half of the yard in the back of the house for $650,000, a place you couldn't even build a house there. So they would lower the price for him. That violates the ethics law of the Senate. No U.S. senator can accept financial favors of that kind. If this had been a Republican, he would be in prison now, expelled from the Senate. They let it go. Big scandal here. Worse than that, Tony Resco didn't have all the money either, so a cousin of Saddam Hussein by the name of Auchi, A-U-C-H-I, lent Resco the money that he could then, the wife could buy the backyard of the house for $650,000. So our president's house in Chicago was indirectly financed by a cousin of Saddam Hussein. Isn't that beautiful? And look at the connection with the Arab. The guy from Aleppo, the one that gave the money was from Iraq. All right, that's one scandal. Another big scandal another good friend of Obama is, of course, the former governor of Rod Blagojevich. A good friend of him who is also in prison, an ally, political ally of him there. And then the other big scandal that I write in here, well, there are many scandals that I write, but this is very important. And you remember how the president, when he went to London shortly after he was elected in 2008, gave a vow to King Abdullah, who just died, right, yesterday? At the age of 90, he only had 30 children and I think 12 wives. Anyway, so King Abdullah, he does that shameful bowing, right? When do we have a U.S. president bow to a corrupt king of Saudi Arabia? Well, why did he bow to the king? Well, one thing, he was showing deference to the king where the Mecca and Medina is, right? Saudi Arabia. But more than that, the royal family of Saudi Arabia financed his Harvard education. He was so poor as a community organizer in Chicago, he was driving a car that had a hole on the floor. And then, of course, first of all, he didn't have the grades to enter the law school. He never shown his grade. By the way, this is the president that we know the least about. Didn't show the grades, didn't show the medical record, didn't show anything. Even all the papers from the state of Illinois where he served as a state senator for 8 years, he didn't show a single paper. He wouldn't show the appointments, he wouldn't show anything that he did. No, I never kept any records, he always stayed. Everybody keeps records, especially when you're a politician. Anyway, so how do I know that the king financed that? Very simple. There was a very prominent black in New York, which I have his picture right here in the book. His name was Percy Sutton. He's a former state senator, first African-American state senator in New York, the legislature. He was president of Manhattan Borough. He was also the lawyer of Malcolm X. So this gentleman, when he's about 80 some, he gets interviewed in 2007 by a reporter from New York City, and he asked this prominent African American, and he says, how do you feel about Senator Barack Obama running for president? He says, oh, I feel great. Actually, I knew him when he was a community organizer. Oh, you did? Well, how did you meet Senator Barack Obama? Well, my friend, this guy, Khalid Al-Mansour, who assumed that name because he had a Christian name, he became a Muslim. He was the lawyer for the Black Panthers in California. He converted to Islam and then met the nephew of King Abdullah, that just died, who was going to college in California. And then, of course, became good friends of the nephew of the king. He takes him back to Riyadh, introduces him to King Abdullah. Abdullah loves this guy because he writes books saying that if you are a Christian, we'll kill you unless you become a Muslim. And I hate whites. And I think we need to strip the skin of all the white people because they're evil people. The 20 books he's written are like that. So he loves this guy for what he writes. And then he hires him as the lawyer for the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And he's the lawyer that represents Saudi Arabia in OPEC and so forth. He does business with 52 African countries with the nephew, who is a multi-billionaire. And he also becomes, of course, very, very rich doing that. So this guy, who calls himself Al-Mansur, which is the name of a warrior that assassinated lots of Christians in Spain during the Middle Ages, he contacts Percy Sutton. And Percy Sutton says this in his interview. I said, well, how did you know Barack Obama? Well, my friend, this one here, was raising money for Barack Obama to go to Harvard. And he asked for my help. So I knew lots of professors in Harvard, because this other guy was a lawyer too. And so he contacted the professors. Oh, we have this bright guy from Chicago, the most brilliant black man we ever met. And we're helping him to get, so he gets to Harvard with money from the Saudi family of Saudi Arabia, and with the help of Percy Sutton, who writes to all the professors, so they can ignore his bad grades that he had. So anyway, those are some of the scandals besides having a mentor in the 5th grade, Frank Marshall Davis. I'm sure you heard of him, you might have heard of him. That's his picture here. His grandfather, the white grandfather, introduced him to this gentleman who becomes Barack Obama's mentor, and he's a card-carrying member of the Communist Party of the United States. There are 20,000 members only in the United States. Many more communists everywhere, but 20,000 actually have their name in the Communist Party, and I have a number and a card. This is one of them. And guess what? This guy worked with Vernon Jarrett, who is the father-in-law of Valerie Jarrett. Look at the connections here, right? And also Valerie Jarrett's grandfather was also a communist. And then she married the son of another communist. And Axelrod, who was the right hand of Barack Obama and did the campaign, his mother had a communist newspaper in Chicago. See how they all get? Bird of the same feather, they get together, right? All the communists get together. Anyway, so those are the scandals before he gets into office. And of course, I have a whole section why I think I have 30 bullets why Barack Obama is a Muslim. Because you say, well, how do you know that he's a radical Muslim? Well, I have 30 bullets in here. I don't have time to go over them. But it's surprising that the first thing he does when he enters the White House is throw away Winston Churchill's bust, right? That was given to George W. Bush by the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And why does he do that? Have you heard what Mr. Joshi said of Islam? Horrendous things about Islam. Why did he not go to Paris with all the world leaders? Because he had to support Charlie Hebdo newspaper who ran the cartoon making fun of the Prophet of Islam. And he goes to the United Nations and says to the United Nations, the world does not belong to those that blaspheme the Prophet of Islam. And yet, has never opened his mouth about the 1 billion Christians that have been assassinated over the last decades, about all the Coptic churches from the 1st century AD that were being burned in Egypt. He doesn't complain when Al-Qaeda goes into Syria and assassinates Christians that speak Aramaic, the language of Jesus Christ. When has he complained about that? Never. But he's too. But the other one, Mark, whatever his name is, the other senator from Massachusetts who is also a Marxist, they introduced a bill in the Senate and the other guy in the House criminalizing, quote, hate speech. And that is what the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, worldwide organization of 57 Muslim countries, wants the West to do, to criminalize any criticism of Islam or the Prophet. So that if somebody draws a cartoon over here, like they did in Paris, France, we'll put him in jail. And we already have a law in Congress. Of course, it didn't get anywhere, but these are the signs. You know, we have maybe 3 or 4 million Muslims in the United States. And how they have advanced in all those short years is incredible, having maybe 1% of the US population. The communist mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, who worked with the Sandinistas in Nicaragua for years, an outright communist, who have a communist in the White House, a mayor of New York who is a communist. Are we in decline or what? So he established in the public schools of New York, that's the largest district in the United States, Muslim holidays. In some other districts, they abolished Christmas because it offends the Muslims. In our service academy, I mean, I hear the hearings at the Armed Forces Committee of the House of Representatives, all the Republicans complaining what they're doing to our cadets in the Air Force Academy, all the places that they write something there about Jesus or whatever. No, you erase that because that offends. We have 3 Muslim cadets here, and they're offended when they see that Jesus there that you write on your board. I mean, this is outrageous. Anyway, so I have a whole chapter in the book on Egypt. How Barack Obama helped Mohamed Morsi come to power. In fact, he tried to help him to the very last day so he wouldn't be overthrown. Thank God we have that general in Egypt, Al-Sisi, who overthrew a military coup, Morsi, who almost destroyed Egypt in the year that he was there, assassinated Christians, killed lots of people. In fact, he's in jail awaiting trial for murder. The friend of Obama that he helped to put in power in Egypt, Mohamed Morsi. And so anyway, so I have a whole chapter on Egypt. I have another chapter how he was overthrown. To the very last day, Barack Obama was trying to keep him in power, trying to avoid the coup d'etat that overthrew him. While he was in power, Egypt owed the United States $1 billion. He canceled that debt. We gave him 200 Abrams tanks, the best tanks that we have. At the same time, we're cutting the Pentagon's budget. He was going to give him F-16s as well, arming Morsi. And he also was trying to get him an International Monetary Fund loan for $5 billion. All of that to keep him in power. Actually, in the year he was in power, he absolutely destroyed Egypt. And by the way, this general gave the most important speech about 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago, when he went to the university in Cairo, where has all the high priests of Islam, the important leaders, and he said, there's something wrong with our religion. Because we have too many people killing people all over the world in the name of Islam. Something wrong. We have to look at our religion and find out what's happening. And also we need to revolutionize Islam. That's the word he used. Meaning we have to amend Islam. Because if you read the Quran, as I have read it, it says clearly in more than one places, if you do not convert to Islam, we can kill you or enslave you. The Bible says that. The Torah says that. The Buddhist book says that. If you don't join my religion, we kill you. What kind of religion is that? And look how many crimes are being committed in the name of Islam throughout the world. And of course, this president cannot say the word Islamic terrorist. Doesn't allow anybody in his administration to use that language. And when Nidan Hassan, the mayor, psychiatric mayor of the U.S. Army, assassinated 13 U.S. soldiers and injured a bunch of them in Fort Hood, Texas, just before those soldiers were about to go to war in Afghanistan, he didn't call that an act of terror. Workplace violence. Can you imagine saying that? And he says, Allahu Akbar. And boom, 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 kill all the soldiers, including a woman that was pregnant. So he killed the baby too. The unborn baby also died. So 13 and a baby that was going to be born. Thank you. I got 10 minutes left. I could go on forever here. I mean, I can talk about this for hours and hours, so you don't have the time or the strength to hear me. But anyway, I have a whole chapter on the Obamanomics. He claimed that all the fantastic economy that we have, 5 point whatever, all of that are absolute lies. We have less people in the workforce right now in the United States than 30 years ago, and yet our population has grown a lot. That's an absolute lie. Our real unemployment is 17%. He says that for 2 years, we have zero inflation, and none of us got a penny raise in a Social Security check. So he heard people, well, I'm 71, so I also collect Social Security. And some of you here also collect Social Security. So for 2 years, zero inflation. We didn't get a raise. And what did we get this year? 1 point whatever. You're going to tell me in the last 3 years, the United States had 1.3 inflation in 3 years? So he lies on the unemployment, he lies on the inflation, he lies on everything. I call him the liar in the White House, among other many titles that I give him in the book. This president doesn't know the truth. If he would see the truth, he lies constantly. Another chapter in the book talks about the New World Order. I don't know how you're familiar with that. Maybe some of you have read some of the books. I have like 20 books in the bibliography that I used to write all these chapters. Bilderberg Group, have you heard of that? Well, let's go back to how all that got started, very briefly, because I'm running out of time here. Colonel House ran the administration of Woodrow Wilson when he had that stroke. He's the one that did the League of Nations. He wanted to do back then a world government. And then he founded, together with the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, in London, the Royal Institute of Foreign Policy in 1919, at the very end of World War I. It's now also called the Chatham House. You may have heard that other name. And 2 years after that, we did a branch of the London, the Council of Foreign Relations, in the Pratt House in New York City, which is a heritage from the Rockefellers. Just Rockefeller gave the UN land, and they also gave their building for the Council of Foreign Relations in the US 1921. They also founded branches in Australia, the world colonies of Great Britain at the time, Australia, South Africa, Canada, and so forth, in all the other colonies that they had. And then, of course, later on, we had after World War II in 1954, the Bilderberg Group was set up. It's a hotel by that name near the capital of Holland. And that's where they met, the Bilderberg Hotel, so they called that group the Bilderberg Group. Founded again, same people, the Rothschilds, Rockefeller. David Rockefeller is a founding member of the Bilderberg Group, as well as the Trilateral Commission, which he founded out in 1972. What is the objective of this organization? To take us to a world government under the United Nations, where we will lose our sovereignty, our money, our laws, our constitution. It will be over. It will be the UN ruling us, but the UN will be following orders from these elitist globalists who are part of all these groups. They are so powerful. For example, just to give you an idea, no matter who the president is, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, in all of the administration we have had since 1921, and since 1921 on, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of State, so we're talking foreign policy, defense, and money, head of the CIA, top level of the Pentagon, all of them comes from the Council of Foreign Relations. They have like 4,000 members, And there are Democrats and Republicans in there, and even when Reagan came in, and Reagan was not a part of any of these groups. What did President Reagan do as soon as he was elected, president-elect? He went to meet with David Rockefeller in his huge state that he has in New York City. And then even President Reagan administration was staffed by people from the Council of Foreign Relations. So no matter who the president is, defense, foreign policy, money comes from there. So I talk about those groups in great detail, how they got found. Even go back to the Illuminati in Bavaria in 1776, and then the Thule Society in Germany, the Jacobins in the French Revolution, the Thule Society in Germany, which then became Skull and Bones in jail. You know, those are the groups that are running our country here. And of course, they have other groups that are running the world in other places. So I talk also about the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal and it doesn't have any reserves. And they stole the United States on December 23rd, 1913, when a private banking cartel made up of the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Rothschilds, the Warburg from Germany and Holland, international bankers, US bankers, they stole the United States on December 23rd, 1913. The US Constitution says very clearly that the Congress of the United States shall print the currency and determine the value thereof. So how is it possible for a law to be passed by Congress, signed by President Wilson, saying that this private banking cartel is going to be printing our currency and determine the value of that currency and put the interest rate up or down? And then we have the Federal Reserve. They have Janet Yellen now, they have a vice governor, and 12 people that they meet at closed doors and they determine our fate. And none of them have been elected by us. And we don't know what they're doing because they don't share what they're doing. So anyway, so that's the Federal Reserve. But worse than that, we have a bank out of Basel, Switzerland called the Bank for International Settlements, which is the central bank of all the central banks of the world, which are all in private hands. And that bank in Switzerland, I have a whole history of the bank here. I don't have time even to cover that bank. But that bank, you can imagine how powerful it is because it's made up of all the same people that own the banks in Europe and other parts of the world. There's 60 nations that are part of this bank. And the bank has a horrendous history in World War II. Had an American president, had 5 Nazis directors. One of the Nazis had factories next to Auschwitz. I was a member of this bank. Another one was the banker of Goebbels, and all the Nazis. And after the end of World War II, at Nuremberg, all of them were indicted, these 5 guys, for crimes against humanity, but the bankers, helpers in the West, got them out very quickly. They spent 1 year in jail, 2 years in jail. So it's a very horrible bank, and as Germany would invade Czechoslovakia and any other country in Europe, all the gold that they would steal, that was the first thing the Nazis did, all that gold went into the vault of that bank in Basel. So there you had an American president, you had Nazis, you had Italian, you had French, you had British directors, and they had all beautifully in the middle of World War II. From Basel, Switzerland, you can look at Germany and you can look at France, where the Allies were fighting the Nazis there, and the bankers got along very well, even though all the countries were fighting each other. So anyway, so I talk about that bank. It's a bank that's hardly known. I would say nobody here knows that bank, I'm sure, right? Never heard of that bank. But if you take a poll in the United States, maybe 5,000 people knows about that bank. I have other articles there on the entire history of the Muslim Brotherhood, how it started with Albania in Egypt, how it's all over the world in 80 countries. I have another chapter about the infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood in the Obama administration, including Uma Abedin, who is the right hand of Hillary Clinton, and she's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. She married that pervert, remember him, from New York that wanted to be mayor? Anthony Weiner, remember him? She married him to cover it up. Member of the Muslim Brotherhood married to a pervert Jewish guy. What a wonderful marriage. Anyway, so, and then that's just one of the many members of the Muslim Brotherhood. I have all the pictures of this guy in the book. And what did they do? This young guy over here, who is a Hafiz of the Quran. That means he memorized the Quran completely in Arabic. And Obama cited that when he named him ambassador to the Organization of Islamic States, which is made up of 57 countries. And he was also a lawyer in the White House, and this guy was the one that wrote his speech in Cairo, where he said we're not a Judeo-Christian nation. Yeah. Remember that speech? He wrote that speech for him. So he worked in the White House as a lawyer, and he's an ambassador, and he's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. This other guy here is even worse. This one is he's an imam, born in Sudan, that assassinated 400,000 Christians, Mohammed Magid, born in Sudan, and he is an advisor to the White House, the FBI, the CIA, and the Department of Homeland Security. And this guy wrote a speech for Barack Obama when he went to the State Department, and for the first time ever in the history of the United States, he said in the State Department, Israel needs to go back to the 1967 boundaries. Meaning, the Golan Heights go back to Syria, half go back to Jordan, and so forth. This is disappointing. He doesn't put them in transportation. He puts them where? Homeland Security, FBI, CIA. And this guy has rewritten all the manuals that are used at the Pentagon, the CIA, the FBI, the military academies, and Homeland Security. Clean any criticism of Islam. And it's just one scandal after the other. They had a training in Atlanta, Georgia, training officers from the Army Reserve. And the Southern Poverty Center, which is a Marxist group, wrote a manual. And in that manual, they taught our reserve officers in the Army that Catholics, certain Jewish group, and all evangelicals are worse than Al-Qaeda. That was taught to our military. And then the Cardinal Dolan complained in New York, the head of the chaplain in the Pentagon complained, and of course there were so many complaints they had to withdraw that manual, but it just tells you the tenor of our times. So that's a major chapter there, because I mentioned with pictures all of these people that he has hired. Two of them he hired as assistant secretary of, time is up. I'm just closing a second here. Two of them assistant secretary of Homeland Security, members of the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, anyway, the rest of the book, it's, I ran out of time here, but let's see, I'll just tell you the names of the chapter very quickly here, so you have an idea. I'll tell you about Egypt. Then I have a big chapter on the gathering threat of China to our national security. Very lengthy chapter. China is stealing our military industrial secrets. It's at war with us in currency war, so forth. I have a chapter on Russia. I talk about how Detroit went bankrupt. I talk about Obama's violations of the Constitution and election fraud, and so forth. And the last chapter is called The Road Ahead. I think this decline is reversible. What should we do to save our nation? I wish I were in Congress so I could do it. But this is what we need to do. Number one, we need to impeach the president. I don't think the Republicans have the guts to do it. But they have to do it. All this, I mean, just that Libya thing that I told you, that's enough. And Trey Gowdy, who has the select committee on Benghazi, he knows it all. Oh, yeah. These people are in contact with him on a daily basis. They know it. They know he's. But guess what? They are afraid to impeach him because they think if they file impeachment in the House of Representatives, he will declare himself a dictator and declare martial law. Or he would get all the blacks to rise in civil war against the rest of us, like he did with these two guys that were killed by the police. Remember, all the 170 countries people were demonstrating, cities in the US. So that's a thing we need to do. If we don't have the guts to do that, at least sue him every time that he violates the Constitution, which they only did it once and they won when they did it. Number two, the power of the purse. The worst thing that Speaker of the House Bonner did was to fund the government, except for the Homeland Security, because of the illegal amnesty that gave to 5 million illegal aliens. They funded to September the 30th. They didn't have to do that. They could have funded until February 15th and then do separate bills. Don't put everything all or nothing like an omnibus bill on the budget. You fund what? Internal revenue, attack 800 conservative and religious organizations. You know what? We're going to cut the funding 50% of internal revenue. The EPA is harassing our oil and gas company. We're cutting the EPA by half. And then we send those bills. And if you don't like it, veto. Then we have no internal revenue and no EPA. In other words, that's what we need to do. The power of the purse. And they're not doing it. And look at this election. This is the election in 1928. We never elected so many people in the 50 state legislature. We elected 80 additional Republicans in the House and the Senate, 54 in the Senate. Lots of new Republicans. So we need to use the power of the press. The other thing we need to do is, all of you here have a sphere of influence, big or small. If you have internet, you share what you, if not, talk to people, because that's how we need to get this story out. I sent Jer, I don't know how many of you have internet, but Jer has my last 40 articles since this book came out. I have enough articles to do another book this size. And if he can send you, forward the email that I sent him, because I talk about Cuba there, what just happened, it's an atrocity in Cuba. I don't want to get into Cuba. I get very angry at what he did on Cuba. But anyway, so we need to talk about what's happening. The more people we talk, the more people that are aware of what's happening, letters to the editor, work as poll workers, so you can see what's going on in your poll. When we have, in 2 years, the presidential election. There are many things that we can do. But we cannot be disheartened. We cannot feel defeated, because we're not. First of all, this fracking thing, which Obama had nothing to do with that, is really helping our economy now. Nothing that Barack Obama did. It's the private industry that did that. The fracking, the thing about the fracking, the oil is now so cheap. I was amazed. I just paid $1.98 over here. In Miami, it's much more than that. We put a lot of taxes on our gas in Miami. We have a lot of bureaucrats there that we need to maintain and keep in their jobs, so that's why it's expensive there. But anyway, the oil. We have a tremendous entrepreneurial class. We have a lot of smart people in the US, great inventions coming out all the time. So even though, as of now, America's in decline because the traitor that we have in the White House, this decline is irreversible. We can reverse it, and we can be the greatest nation on the face of the earth. That's what we have been for many, many years. May God bless America, and may God bless each of you here. I'll take questions now.
We're going to have Q&A now, and we're also going to pass the hat to defray their travel expenses. The only rule is, in order to ask a question, you have to have the mic. So you have to take you have to take the mic away from me. So raise your hand if you want to ask a question.
Before you ask a question, I want to introduce you my beautiful wife, Heidi. She helped me. I've written 21 books, and she has helped me on all of the 21 books. Her English is better than mine, and her Spanish is better than mine.
Okay, who's got a question?
If you were to pick just one person that is supporting Obama and everything that's going on right now, that's back behind all this money, who would it be?
In the White House, one person?
One, not in the White House, but in all of these countries. Who is giving all the money? Is it from Saudi Arabia, or is it George Soros? Or?
Well, George Soros is a big supporter of Barack Obama. He's a multimillionaire, and he has funded a multitude of organizations that all of them are working for Obama. So yeah, that would be a strong supporter of him. But he has more than that. You know, unfortunately, we have a lot of people in this country, multimillionaires, that are backing him. Yeah, that's quite unfortunate. Because maybe they think that when we go to a world government, they're going to be on top, and we're going to be all slaves to them. Agenda 21, all these things I talk about here, you know, in the book. The 17 treaties that Barack Obama wants to pass, UN treaties, to control the internet, to take away our guns, the law of the sea, all of these treaties, the end result will be to take away our wealth, to do away with our constitution, and we'll have a UN court. There will be a UN EPA, that would tell our factories, you're spending too much carbon or whatever when they tax you. Oh, they also give world taxes collected by the UN. You know, all of those things, behind him are all these elitist globalists.
Right.
One of them is David Rockefeller, 98 years old. God bless him, these bad people never die. Like Castro, Mao Zedong.
Who's up next?
I don't need the mic. Would you please ask Mr. President Obama to go to the Super Bowl and inflate the balls?
But actually, I will give him a balloon so he can fly into space and get all the way to the moon there and stay there.
Excuse me. What do you think Obama's next move is going to be in the 2 years that he has left if we can't impeach him? And I pray every day that we can, but I'm not. That's the other thing. You actually think we can do it with the people in Congress? Would they actually do that? I mean, the media would be against it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're pretty much shot in the butt.
Well, let me say this. If this man, in his select committee of Benghazi, everything I told you he knows, and more things I don't know, worse things I don't know. If he published a report, what happened in Libya, and that report cannot be ignored by our press, even the pro-Obama New York Times will have to report something like this. Now, whether this guy has the guts to do it, or whether he'll be threatened and be assassinated if he tries to do it, is a different story. But they know everything he has done. Whether they do it or not, I don't know. I pray that they do. The worst thing that we can do is allow this man to continue to destroy the United States for 2 more years. And then, he's young, he's not going to go away. He wants to put Elizabeth Warren there. He hates Hillary Clinton. He doesn't want Hillary Clinton in the White House. So before he leaves, the nation needs to know who he is. And the nation needs to know all the crimes he has committed, including high treason in Libya, sending guns to Al-Qaeda. See, he goes out and kills some Al-Qaeda with drones, right? So people think he's doing a lot of stuff, right? But on the other hand, he's doing all these other things, you know, behind the backs of Congress, behind the backs of the people in the United States. And our press don't say it, but you know what? London papers say it. Some of the articles that I've written, I quoted the London Daily Mail. They are the ones that said that on the day they killed Ambassador Chris Stevens, he went to Benghazi can you imagine going to Benghazi where there was a lawless place there? He goes there on September 11, 2012 to meet with the General Council of Turkey because on that day a ship by the name of Victory left Benghazi with 420 tons of ammunition. He had to coordinate that shipment. That's why he was killed there. Because why would you want to go to a place like that on that date? That is a day where terrorists always attack the U.S. interests everywhere in the world. So he goes there for that shipment there. That appeared in the London Daily Mail, not in a single U.S. newspaper.
Next question, please. He has given you a lot of information through a fire hose. He's got a lot of knowledge, and now's the time to ask that question. You can't ask anybody else.
All this information that you're telling us, obviously you're not the only one that knows this. We have representatives in Congress, representatives in the Senate. We've got military leaders and generals. Nobody knows what's going on. They don't know who this guy is.
They know who he is. They are afraid to impeachment. They are, everything I've said here, the Republican, the leaders, maybe not every Republican there, not the new ones that just arrived, but the leaders of Congress knows everything I've told you here. And this committee of all these generals and admirals, they're meeting constantly with the Republicans leader of Congress. They know it. But they are afraid. Now remember, he did an executive order saying that if there was a crisis, a major crisis, he could manufacture that crisis, he would suspend the Constitution. He actually did an executive order to that effect. So these people in Congress are afraid if they try to impeach him, he may declare himself a dictator and declare martial law, and then we would have to have a civil war in the U.S. So the good thing about the United States is that we have 320 million guns everywhere. We have a lot of retired Navy SEAL, retired military, and they are not about to tolerate a Marxist society here. If he were to declare himself a dictator, suspend the Constitution, there will be civil war in the United States. Definitely, it will be that. So yeah, but they are aware of it. And they just need to have the intestinal fortitude to do what they need to do. I mean, for goodness sake, what did Nixon do compared to this man? Nothing. Compared to Barack Obama, he did absolutely, and we forced him out of office. We forced him out of office. But are we afraid of this man? Why? Because he's a communist? See, let me just mention this about communism, because this is important. I'll answer your question right away. We have 20,000 card-carrying members, Communist Party members, but they control our largest unions. The AFL-CIO under George Meany used to be an anti-communist union. They had a coup d'etat, they got rid of him, now they have Hoffa, a gangster, no Hoffa. Yeah, Hoffa is the Teamster, another guy, I forget his name now. That union is Marxist. Then we have the Service Employee International Union that gave Barack Obama $145 million in the election, and the entire union is communist. Our union used to be anti-communist. So now we have 20,000 communists that control the largest unions, who control what? The Democratic Party, because they give all the money to them, right? So, and then we have something called the Progressive Democratic Caucus, founded by Bernie Sanders. He may be running for president too. He's a Marxist also. In fact, they used to play the Communist International, and they took it away because it was so obvious they were communists. And we have 40, 50 people in there. We have at least 40 to 50. Anyone knows Trevor Loudon? Have you heard of him? He's written 2 books, and he's the foremost expert on communism in the US. He's written 2 books telling which of the communists are communists, the ties that they have to the Socialist Party, whatever. And Barack Obama himself was a member of the Socialist Party in Chicago, which was a Marxist party when he was a state senator. So I mean, you know, I come from a communist country. You know, I can see this the way we're going. You know, we are really in great risk with this president there. Our only salvation will be that they let us have a free and fair election in 2016, and we can elect a Republican that can undo all the damage that this president has done. That will be my only hope. But I have to tell you that I was supposed to be here in October, correct? And I was sending emails back and forth. He was answering the emails. I never got one back. Someone, the email that I sent him from frankdevarona@yahoo.com to his private email from my private computer electronically was changed. And he was told in the email that arrived, something I did not write, please reply at frankdevarona with an M, which is not my name, at hotmail.com. So I never got his replies. That's why I missed the October meeting here. So you can imagine that we are living in a police state. My latest article is, what I sent you, the latest article, are we losing our freedom of speech and freedom of the press? Yes, we are. I'm an example of that. I'm just a little ant compared to the elephant that is Barack Obama. But if they can rewrite a private email that I sent, what can they not do with electronic elections, you know? Where everything you send electronically can be altered, and the Congress knows it. The people have testified to that effect again and again. So another thing that happens to me is every single thing I'm writing is being read at the same time I'm writing. I taught a class on China at the University of Miami. This article I mentioned, the gathering state of China, and I was mentioning, as I was writing that chapter, that a U.S. Navy ship called the USS Impeccable, this is a spy ship, 70 nautical miles away from the island of Hainan, which would have all the Chinese submarines at the largest base that they have in that island. So we are in international waters, which is okay to spy there, it's not illegal. And our spy ship is a tiny ship that has antennas, to listen to what the Chinese are talking. That ship, US Navy ship, gets attacked by 10 Chinese ships who commit an act of war. They destroy the antennas of our ship, and then they lower their pants and they show their behinds. They moon our sailors to humiliate them even more. All right? As I'm writing that in my computer, because I knew that, I'm in Word, I'm not even in the internet, I'm inside my own computer. I get an article inside my computer about another Navy ship. This time it's a cruise missile, the USS Cowpens, who is also in the South China Sea in international waters. And our cruise missile is observing the only aircraft carrier that China has, which is called the Liaoning, which is the name of a province in China. And it's in maneuvers in the South China Sea. It has a lot of warships around it, and the jet planes are flying in and out. And our cruise missile obviously is filming and seeing how the Chinese know whether to move a carrier or not. So I get that article inside my article. I mean, I couldn't believe it, because I'm not in the internet. All of a sudden, I see something enters there, and then the spy, he or she, bless that spy, wanted to tell me two things. One, know that we're spying on you. Thank you, I already knew that. Number two, you're a good guy. Let me help you so your article can be stronger. So then I took that article that got sent to me from the sky and added to my article. So I had two examples then, not just one ship, that got attacked by the Chinese ship, which is 2 acts of war that I was able to put in that article. But it shows the type of society we live in. I'm not a traitor. I'm exercising my First Amendment right. The fourth right is the Constitution's privacy. What about my privacy, Anyway. Go ahead, sir.
What do you think of Eric Holder?
He's as bad as Obama. He needs to be impeached and needs to be in jail as well. He has committed all type of crimes.
Do you think that if the Supreme Court seat became available, he would be nominated by Obama?
Not now. We have 54 senators that are going to turn down that appointment. It's too late. They could have done that prior to January of this year. He was trying to get that older woman, Democrat, right, to get out so he could put it there, but she didn't want to go. So that saved us from having now a definite 5-4 in favor of Obama. And let's pray that the other Republicans don't die, so that he would put Eric Holder there or someone like that. Yes, ma'am.
I almost feel that whatever Obama does from here on, he's like goading people so that the word impeachment would come up. And if he feels it's real, there'll be overnight massive race riots. We saw what happened in Ferguson. Yes. And then this would give him his excuse to declare martial law.
Yeah, this is why they are afraid to do it, for that very reason that you're stating.
Yeah.
That very reason.
And do you have any recommendation at this point as to whom we put support for the 2012? Not just of the people who have already thrown their hat in, but possibilities.
Well, we have a lot of great candidates. We have a lot of good governors, any of which would be a great president. The one from Texas, this outgoing governor, is great. We have Mike Pence from Indiana. We have the one from Wisconsin. All of these people, they're great candidates. We have good senators for that. I am not, Jeb Bush was a very good governor in Florida. He did an excellent 8 years. But Ed Bush has, I wrote an article why he would not be a good candidate. I happen to know him. I know his dad. I've been to the White House with George Weber. I've been to the White House 3 times with President Reagan as well. The problem with Jeb Bush is, number one, he's supporting Common Core. By the way, I didn't tell you that I have a 29-page chapter on Common Core here. And I gave you a flyer, a bilingual flyer. He's supporting that, and it's very strange that he's supporting that because they did a Gallup poll in the US, 79% of the Republicans are opposed to Common Core. 57% of the Democrats don't want it. The very liberal leftist governor of New York, Cuomo, has postponed Common Core indefinitely. So how can we have Jeb Bush still supporting Common Core? I mean, it's madness. I've talked to people that know him very well. They say, I mean, he has to withdraw from Common Core. That's going to hurt him a lot, with conservatives especially. All right, so that's one problem. Number two, he's for amnesty. He wants to legalize 12, 13 million Mexicans, Central Americans, and Arabs, you know, that also want to become citizens. Mexicans vote 90% Democratic. So if we were to legalize 12, 13 million Mexicans, whatever the number is, it's over for the Republican Party. They don't have to cheat anymore in elections because they'll have a supermajority. So how can Jeb Bush be supporting that when it's against the future of the Republican Party? And then he has another problem. We've had two presidents by the name of Bush. Do we want a third president by the name of, do we want another Clinton after we have one Clinton? You know, so he has that also, which helps him to raise money, you know, with all the friends of the father, the brother, but still he's a Bush. Is the United States ready for a third Bush? So, and the fourth problem that he has, he's been doing business with China. And he's been doing business so people don't pay taxes, putting tax havens in England so investors don't pay taxes. All of that is going to come out, plus other stuff that came out before. We had a crook, a Cuban-American crook that was stealing for, he had a clinic, HMO, and he was stealing, but he was a friend of Bush, and then he called his father, so they will, don't bother this guy, and eventually this guy became a fugitive in Spain because he was going to go to jail for many years for stealing. All of these things are going to come out. The wife, the Mexican wife he has, she brought in $5,000 worth of expensive dresses from Paris, didn't pay immigration dues, didn't go to jail because the husband was the governor, but that's going to come out too. See, all of the bad things that Republicans have done, every single thing is going to come out. The Democrats can do horrendous things, and that's covered up.
You must know Marco Rubio. Tell us about
Yes, but Marco Rubio is extremely smart. He made one mistake. He promised, especially conservative and Tea Party members, that he will never vote for amnesty. And then when he got there, John McCain got him, and a few other guys got him and said, you want to be president, you have to play ball with us. And then he, of course, tried to do it. Then he backtracked afterwards, but nevertheless, that hurt him with conservative. But I know him personally. I mean, I knew him when he was 21 years old and was a state representative out of Miami. He's extremely smart. He's fully bilingual in the two languages. What you hear him speak, I mean, he's a tremendous speaker, but in the two languages, he's a tremendous speaker. And he has done an excellent job, I think, particularly now with Cuba and other things. I think he will be a fantastic candidate. But we have a lot of good people. We have Ben Carson. He's outstanding. I mean, you know, so we are blessed that we have excellent candidates. And any of those two, either president, vice president, will do a fantastic job. The only thing is, we have to have free, fair, and transparent elections. If they do it, we win. They let us win now because the polls were so overwhelming that if they had cheated now and kept the Senate, it would be obvious there was something wrong with the elections, right? Because, I mean, every poll was overwhelmingly that what happened. So I do hope that the Democrats do not cheat and not fix those machines or play with electronically, you know, when those totals go from one computer to the big computer to the larger computer. If they don't do that, we should win in 2016. And I pray God that will happen.
How can we get pastors and churches more involved in this battle to save America?
Yes, the churches were the one that did the American Revolution. The churches did it. From the pulpit. I mean, you've seen the movie, there's a preacher, let's go and fight, and the whole congregation. That happened a lot in the American Revolution. Do you know Matt Staver from Liberty Council? You heard his name? He has a movement. I mentioned that in the book, by the way. I mentioned the number of churches that we have. I think it's over 300,000 churches. He's trying to do just that. And we're working with him a lot, with Matt Staver. He's trying to organize the churches, particularly in the battleground states. This is not the time for preachers to be afraid because they may have 20% Democrat in the audience, they have to fight for freedom. They have to fight for a constitutional republic. They have to stand for liberty. And if some of the parishes don't like it, let them leave, from the church. We need to organize all the churches, because what is he doing? He's an Islamic radical. He's trying to destroy Christianity. He has done a very good job so far of destroying Christianity. So if you're not going to defend Christianity, then what do we have churches for? So yes, that's a must. We need to organize. In fact, he's already doing that. And Ted Cruz's father, I know Ted Cruz personally. I know his father even better. The father is a Protestant minister out of Texas. And he's been many times. He went to Miami, came to Orlando twice. I've heard him speak many times. And that's his message. This church has to organize, and we need to make sure. Let me tell you what happened in 2012. We have something like 85 million evangelicals, counting Catholics, Protestants, so forth. 85 million. Of that, 50% were not registered to vote. And of the ones that were registered to vote, only half voted, meaning that only 25% cast a ballot in 2012. They didn't like Romney, because Romney is an outstanding person. I mean, I didn't particularly like what he did in Massachusetts with Romney Care, whatever it was there. But you can't judge a candidate with one thing. And besides, in Massachusetts, how can you elect a conservative in Massachusetts? He's a middle of the roader, a brilliant man, absolute brilliant. I did his biography in the last book. I met his son. In fact, I have the picture with the son in here. The son was a Peace Corps in Chile, and he's fluent in Spanish. So he came to Miami to campaign for that. And I worked with him also in Miami in 2012. So we have outstanding candidates, and the evangelicals were torn off because of Romney, because he wasn't conservative enough. But you know what? Would you rather have Romney or Barack Obama? I mean, is there a choice there? I'll take 10 Romneys before having Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. Or Elizabeth Warren. That's the candidate of Barack Obama, Elizabeth Warren, who is even to the left of Hillary Clinton. How can you be more to the left of Hillary Clinton? Well, that one is even worse than him.
Okay, we got one more question in here. Anybody?
Well, I do. I've been thinking about this for a long time, because Barack Obama never goes by the Constitution. I believe that he will declare himself as the president. And I have gotten letters from different people that said, this is what he is going to do. And I believe it with all my heart.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility. And you know why? He's armed to the teeth of federal agencies. To the teeth. Homeland Security has purchased billions of dollars of weapons. In 2007, when he was campaigning, he said we need to create a militia in the United States as large as the army. And guess what Fidel Castro did? That. Guess what Hugo Chavez did? Just that. So he's following the steps of other communists. So this is why I think he needs to be impeached either way. Because he might do it anyway.
Right.
And you know what? If we need to fight, we fight, If he committed high crimes, as he has done, we can't let him leave office. He's not going to go away. He'll be out there subverting, doing the same thing he's doing now, not being he's the only president in the United States that have created an organization, Organizing America, I think it's called, right? With lots of money, so he can continue doing what he's doing, in or outside of the White House. So we cannot let him leave the White House with all the crimes he has committed, and treason, and all of that. I think it's a mistake to let him leave the White House. But there's a lot of fear, like the lady said over here, a lot of fear. I mean, if he did all this agitating together with the Attorney General over the guy in Ferguson, who clearly attacked the police, robbed a store, pushed a Hispanic there in the store, went after the police for his gun, the police in self-defense kills him, and then he does all of this agitating throughout the United States. Even now, yesterday, I think they announced, they can do nothing to the policeman. Even they looked at him because they wanted to try him on a civil rights violation, because of course he was not indicted by the grand jury that examined the evidence, and they couldn't do it. because the evidence isn't there. But look what happened. Look, you know what also happened? They saw Sarah Ferguson. They have a Nixon. They have Governor Nixon, who's a Democrat in Missouri. And he got a call from Valerie Jarrett not to send the National Guard when they knew they were going to riot. They were rioting before because they wanted businesses to be burned. That's why. So that's what we have. So I think that's a danger, that he may just do that. Already we have communist Congressman Serrano, who's a friend of Fidel Castro, in New York City, who's saying we need to either change the Constitution so that he can run for president again. And I even heard that they already written that Constitution. So he can. I've never seen a Marxist live voluntarily once they get elected into office. If he does, it will be the first one. But that's a clear and present danger that he might do just that, unfortunately.
One thing that I don't understand is how we let this Barack Obama, whatever his name is, be elected a second term from 2012.
Actually, he lost the election. There was massive fraud in 2012.
How do we
You want me to tell you?
we let him
Yeah.
be elected?
Let me tell you two things. I think he did massive fraud in 2008 and 2012. In 2008, he used Acorn, a Marxist organization that he worked for them for many years, and they falsified millions, thousands, tens of thousands of ballots in the battleground state. That happened in 2008, including intimidating white voters, the new Black Panther Party in Philadelphia. In 2012, before that book came out that I did on Obama or Romney, there was a poll done in Florida, the Miami Herald, which has endorsed twice Barack Obama, the Tampa Tribune, which I think also endorsed Obama as well. And that poll said 2 weeks before the election that Romney was winning Florida 57%.
Yeah.
And then he got 49.5. A friend of mine works in the polls of Palm Beach County, and he told me that in his poll, they reported twice as many votes as people voted. And then he wrote a letter to the election supervisor of Palm Beach County, he wrote a letter to the Secretary of State, which is responsible for the 67 counties elections, and he didn't get an answer. So that's why I pray that if we do have fair. And the other thing we need to do, we can't have 17 states that you can vote without showing any ID. That's outrageous. You remember that guy that went in DC where they have the same law that you can vote? One guy went and voted, say, I'm Eric Holder. He said, Holder, go and vote. And he voted in the name of Eric Holder. And that lady, that African-American woman in Ohio that said proudly, I voted, I don't know, 10 times for Barack Obama, she said. We have a whole section in bwcentral.org on election fraud. A whole section. I mean, all the election miracles that happen. Can you imagine that in Cleveland and Philadelphia, 100% of the voters voted for Barack Obama? Not even one by mistake voted for Romney? That's a statistical miracle. Never happened before in any other election.
Okay, y'all need to buy at least one book. Buy a book for a conservative friend or a liberal friend.
Especially for the liberal.
Especially the liberal. So the books are over there. They're discounted $20. And pick up some. And then for those that are able and need help putting your chairs away. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me.